In the previous lecture, we talked about culture and language, the definition of culture, and how to adjust a new culture. Today, we are going to talk about the benefits. The benefits, what are the benefits of adjusting to another culture? The benefits of adjusting to another culture. Although adjusting to another culture can be an arduous experience, difficult experience, there are benefits that make the effort worthwhile. The benefits of successful cultural adjustment include the following. The following are the benefits. Number one, a fuller sense of security. I think it's clear. The possibility of greater success in the workplace. 3, the possibility of establishing meaningful relationship with people from the culture. Of course, when you have good relationship, meaningful relationship, you will practice your language. The possibility of gaining fluency in the language of the host country. Okay, of course, when you go to a new country, when you live with them, establishing relationship, make friends, speak with them, go out, doing routine, everyday life. I mean, things in everyday life. Of course, you will have fluency in the language. And also a deeper understanding of one's own culture. Of course, you will understand when you live in a country, you will understand their culture. You will understand their culture and also understanding of oneself. You will even understand yourself. It reflects to you. Storti, هذا اسم شخص, person, points out, says that when living in another culture, ignorance is the breeding ground for anxiety. When we attempt to interact with people in the culture without knowing what is expected of us or what to expect, we become apprehensive. Okay? خايفين يعني نصير. However, the more we learn about the culture, the more we know, يعني كلما, the more we learn about the culture through our experience, the easier it is to make predictions, and this can reduce apprehension. So how can we reduce this apprehension, this fear, when we know more and more about culture, when we live with culture? Okay, instead of staying at home, go and talk to people, buy things, sell things, yeah. Do your daily life. So this reduces apprehension. Okay, the more we learn about the culture through our experience, the easier it is to make a prediction and can reduce apprehension. Another benefit for some EFL teachers. For EFL teachers, I mean here, teachers of English as a second or as a foreign language, for example, is that friendships with local people can develop over the course of living and working in the culture. Okay? Friendships with local people, with native speakers. When you have friends with native speakers, this can develop over the course of living and working in the culture. And these friendships can become lifelong. Related to making friends is learning the language. Learning language. Although some friendships are developed through the use of language or through the use of English, some can be built on the language of the host country. You see? So sometimes when you go to a place, you want to develop friendships which is built on language here. You know? So what is the purpose of your friendship? The purpose of your friendship is to develop your language. Of course, with time passing, مرور الوقت, we gain confidence through practice and study and control over the language. As we gain confidence through practice and control over the language, and other local people get to know us, friendships develop. Okay, so our friendships, our friends, we will have many friends. Our friendships will be developed because we practice English, we use it everyday life. We will have confidence when, for example, we are invited to weddings, religious events, and social events, المناسبات الاجتماعية. Of course, when we have friends, they will invite us to their social events like weddings, religious events, homes for dinner, and to participate in sport events. All these situations will give us a chance to practice English, to practice language, okay? To use language. When you go to weddings, you will know about this situation. Okay, when you go to, when you go home for dinner or participate in sport events, you will have a chance to use language, to listen to them. What are the things, what are the terms, what are the words that they are using in this situation. Those of us who have successfully adjusted to the host culture, قلنا احنا adjusted يعني يتكيف مع الوضع الجديد. To the host culture, also discover that we have a better understanding of our culture. هذا نشرح النقاط طلاب فوق. يعني هذا الباراجراف السابق وهذا الباراجراف. We have a better understanding of our own culture, of course. يعني هسه احنا we live in Iraq. We know our culture, but we don't know it in detail. Sometimes certain things maybe we know, but we don't think about them because we have only one culture. We know only one culture. But when we live in another culture, we will understand. We will have better understanding, you see, of our own culture. When in our own countries, most of us do not necessarily have opportunities to reflect deeply on our cultural self as profoundly as we do during the cultural adjustment process. For example, having to face living in a place where values and behaviors are different from our own provides a way to reflect on our own culture, on our own values and behaviors. Of course, when you go to a new place, when you stay settled in a new place, you will see the differences concerning values and behaviors, how people behave, and the different values that are different from our own values, different behaviors, you see? So it is different. We will see the differences between our own culture and the culture we are staying or settling. In short, once we encounter. Encounter means face. Once we encounter another frame of reference, we begin to see what we never could before. هذا اختصارها يعني. Once we face in another frame, new culture, another culture, we begin to see what we never could before. We begin to see our own culture. We want to explain this. So culture shock can be considered a deep learning experience that can lead to a high degree of self-awareness and personal growth. Okay, so cultural shock is a deep learning experience because of this culture shock. We talked about culture shock and we said that culture shock because it is different. When we see a new culture, a culture that's different from ours, so we will have this kind of shock, culture shock. But this culture shock is what? It's a deep learning experience. Why? Because it learns us, it tells us about this new country, which can lead a high degree of self-awareness and personal growth. يوصفها Ethiopian شخص from Ethiopian يقول it was the rebirth of me. Rebirth of me. يعني كأنما ولادة من جديد. I came away with a totally new concept of life and living, new values, stronger feelings, far richer experiences than I ever would have had in lifetime in the States. You see, of course, when you go to a new place, you feel that you are new to this country. Everything is different. Culture is different. As if you are reborn again. It is the rebirth, which is your rebirth. Okay? Because everything is different. New values, new customs, new behaviors. So it is a new experience. الجيل المهم. What cultural concepts can ESL teachers teach students? What to teach? What cultural concepts? We as teachers, as ESL teacher, احنا ESL teachers. قلنا احنا ESL يعني English as a foreign or as second language. Foreign or second language. What to teach our students about culture? Do we need to teach our students about culture or not? We will see. As I told you, this introduction about culture, definition of culture, adjustment, will benefit us about these questions. Answer these questions. What cultural concepts? Teachers, راح نخبص بموضوعنا. We teachers can teach concepts that are not only can bring about appreciation for people and culture, but also can be useful for students. See? Not only about people and culture, but useful for students when placed in a cross-cultural communication situation. Cross-cultural communication situation. Here, we have 4 concepts. We have 4 concepts. Number 1, cross-cultural communication includes adapting behavior. Adapting behavior. Number 2, cross-cultural communication involves problem solving. يعني راح ناخذ فقط هسه أول وحدة. Next lecture we will talk about number 2. Number 3, to understand culture, get to know individuals. And the last one, to understand another culture, study your own. Study your own culture. Cross-cultural communication includes what? Adapting behavior. We will see this. A part of learning to communicate with people from other culture is knowing how to adapt one's behavior. يعني يتكيف مع السلوك. شو تتكيف مع السلوك. This is the meaning of adapting. So, a part of learning to communicate with people from other culture is knowing how to adapt one's behavior, including what? Non-verbal and discourse behaviors. You know non-verbal. Non-verbal, then includes facial expressions. We'll talk about that. راح يشرح لنا what is non-verbal behaviors across cultures. Non-verbal behaviors includes kinesics, okay, and proxemics. Kinesics and proxemics. So these two are within what? Non-verbal behavior. So non-verbal behavior includes kinesics and proxemics. What is kinesics? It means facial expressions, gaze, eye management, gesture, touch, posture, and movement. And proxemics, the use of space, such as the distant people sit or stand from each other. Okay. Here we will have what? The differences. We'll see them. Ways in which they can be problematic during instruction. And activities teacher can use to teach students about these differences. To introduce kinesics differences. What are the kinesics differences? We will see them. I often begin by teaching students that people in different cultures work differently. You see, when you want to teach your students, what to teach them? Teach them about what? Kinesics differences. For example, tell them that people in different cultures work differently. Okay? Wiley and Stanford, for example, دول شخصين يعني علماء observed that the French work as if space around them is extremely limited, while Anglo-Americans tend to walk with free swinging arms at a loose and easy gait. You see the differences here? Can see in kinesics are the example. This is an example. An example of kinetics differences is what? Walk. نجي أول واحدة في walk. Walk يعني من يمشي. When you are walking. إنه the French walk as if space around them is extremely limited. لكن Anglo-Americans no, walk freely. To straight هنا نقول لك التوضيح. How people walk in different cultures. It's not سوى volunteer جاب واحد متطوع وقال له امشي. اوكي. walk جاب متطوعين وخلاهم يمشون يعني اشخاص شاف بيناتهم differences. تقدرون تكتبون هذه examples. Another example is shaking hands. How to shake hands? When you shake hands. Okay, when you shake hands. For example, in different cultures, how they shake hands. For example, even we Iraqis, how we shake hands, others. There are so many videos on the internet. You can write, just when you write kinesics or non-verbal communication in different cultures. You can write this on YouTube, okay, non-verbal communication or kinesics in different culture. You will see here different videos on YouTube. I have seen some of them. For example, differences in non-verbal communication across cultures. There are a lot of videos. And how there is misunderstanding. Sometimes there is misunderstanding. Okay, so this is very important. Cultural differences of non-verbal communication. I'm reading here from YouTube. أنا فتحت اليوتيوب جاي أقرأ من عنده. Okay, there are a lot of beautiful, nice videos on YouTube. You can take a look at them and see the differences between cultures. Differences of hand gestures, differences of shaking hands, touch, look, they look when they look, etc. For example, I show students that some Germans, Almanian يعني, use a firm grip, pump the arm, and maintain strong eye contact while stepping closer during the handshake. You see, some Japanese use a weak grip, no arm pump, and no eye contact. يعني ما يباوع لك. I have students who practice these different culturally adapted handshakes, and we talk about why it is important to be able to change the way we shake hands. We talk about the international acceptance of the handshake as a form of greeting between people from different cultural backgrounds. And we discuss how adapting our way of shaking hands when visiting a country. Okay, يعني هنا شفت احنا قلنا what to teach your students, to teach them non-verbal. For example, when we want to teach them about hand, for example, hand shaking or shaking hand, or for example, walk. Okay, when visiting a country, shows respect to those we meet. Further, we discuss how misinterruption can result. شوف يصير عندنا misinterpretation, misunderstanding. يعني سوء فهم يصير عندنا. Can result if we don't adapt our ways. Okay. For example, based on a handshake, Americans sometimes misinterrupt Germans as too aggressive. They are too aggressive. And the Japanese as shy or passive. شفتهم؟ يقول لك aggressive عدواني يعني. لكن Japanese يعتبروهم shy من يسلم عليك، لكن هو مو shy. هذا part of his culture. Part of his culture. Okay. هذا concerning non-verbal, concerning body language. So you see a lot of examples. Another area of kinesics behavior that varies from culture to culture and different. That's different from culture to culture is touch. Okay, it's touching. Well, يعني معناته يقصد هنا اللمس. For example, American males touch each other more often and more body parts than do Japanese males. You see the differences here between cultures? يسوون دراسات. However, when compared to Arabs, Latin Americans and Southern Europeans, these same Americans do not touch much at all. معناته العرب دائما نشوفهم من يمشون واحد بلازق بالثاني. For example, most Thais, since touch is a very personal behavior, it is well worth making students aware that differences in touch behavior exist. For example, most Thais do not like to be touched on the head. ما يحب واحد يجلس على راسه يخلي ايده على راسهم تايلانديين. By people they don't know very well. يعني انت مرات تمشي بالسوق تلقى طفل حلو مرتب او طفله جيب ايدك تخليها عاليه مثلا. احنا نام بالعراق اوكي يعني شيء حلو بس بتايلاند تروح تخليها something not accepted. And some mothers will become annoyed if someone touches their children's head. You see, they will be annoyed, nervous if you touch their heads. I mean, their children's heads. See the differences here. As such, American might get into trouble if she or he playfully rubs a child's head. See, you may get in problem. You will have problem. You will have trouble if you touch a child's head, if you rub a child's head, okay? Because this is different from your culture. We have here many examples. You can read these examples. Related to touch is the use of space and distance. And this can also vary. النوع الثاني proxemics can vary greatly across cultures. Distance, مسافة. من المهمات طلاب. According to Edward T. Holt, middle class, while Americans use space according to the following distance definitions. According to Edward Hall, middle class white Americans, sorry. شوف middle class أنا حدد لك أنا معناته إنه البلاك يختلفون عن الوايت وميدل يختلفون عن الأبر كلاس أوكي أو اللور كلاس different. Use space according to the following distance definitions. Here we have definitions. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Intimate distance. Intimate distance. From body contact to a separation space of 18 inches. يعني بالإنشات. Intimate يعني المسافة الحميمة شلون نقول إحنا. In emotionally, شوف emotionally charged zone used for love making, sharing, protecting, and comforting. 18 inch. احنا الانش ايش قد الانش بالسنتيمتر. اعتقد واحد سنتيمتر يمكن انشين. one inch يعني 2.5 يعني 2.5 سنتيمتر. يعني فأنت اضرب 18 ويطلع لك ايش قد. اوكي 18 inch 18 inches. This is intimate distance. Personal distance. From 1.5 to 4 feet. قدم. 1.5 to 4 feet. من 1.5 إلى 4 أقدام. Used For informal contact between friends, okay, a small protective sphere or bubble that separates one person from another. Okay. This is personal distance. Social distance from 4 to 12 feet. The casual interaction, distance between acquaintances and strangers. Acquaintances, someone you know, and strangers, used in business, meetings, classrooms, and in impersonal social affairs. Public distance between 12 and 25 feet. A call interaction used for one-way communication from speaker to audience, within speaker to audience, إلى آخره. People raised in other cultures adhere to different rules. Okay, you have to adhere to different rules. For instance, for Arabs, the space which is comfortable for ordinary social conversation is approximately the same as that which North Americans reserve for intimate conversation. You see, it's different. يعني هم عندهم فقط ال intimate conversation، يعني مثلا making love، مثلا lovers قلنا 18 inches. من يجون للعرب يقول هو صديقك كأنما intimate conversation. It's different. See the differences between cultures. Arabs tend to stand and sit very close. You see, stand and sit very close. They're saving private space somewhere down inside the body. Latin Americans, Greeks, and Turks are also from high contact cultures and will also stand and sit much closer during everyday social Americans than those from low contact cultures, such as North Americans, Northern Europeans, and Asians. People from low contact cultures, when interacting with people who like contact, will back away, feeling very uncomfortable. You see, شوف هذا يعني أنت عراقي تروح لك الواحد من هذا الكالتشر هو ما يحب إنه تقترب عليه، يعني لازم تبعد وياه حتى من تمشي، بس تحاول تقترب عليه ايش راح يسوي؟ باك اواي، ينسحب، feeling very uncomfortable، ما راح يرتاح. And perceiving the people who like high contact as invading their private space. See, you as if you what يعني تاخذ من مكانه، من المكان الخاص، تحتل المكان الخاص. Those from high contact cultures، يعني ناس صنفناهم high contact cultures و low contact cultures. يعني high contact cultures, those cultures who like to be close together, okay, very close. And low, those to be away, to give space, no longer space. So those from high contact cultures might interpret this behavior as being distant and unfriendly. واضح؟ يعني أنا مثلا أروح لوي واحد من أشوفه جاي يبتعد عني يقول هذا unfriendly. ليش هذا يبتعد عني؟ بيه مشكلة أنا what problem do I have? You see the differences between cultures? These are very important. These are the things that you have to know and teach your students about this culture, especially the language of this culture that your students are learning. As teachers, teachers, we can provide students with chances to gain awareness, إدراك يعني, of the differences. Showing students clips from phones and videotapes. شو هسه أنا قلت لكم. يعني أنت تعرض للطلاب فيديو، تقول لهم مثلا طلابك، تقول لهم مثلا high clips, high videos from films and cultures. ودول يستعملون intimate, personal and social space in different cultures. Okay, this is very important. Can sometimes bring about awareness. شلون نسوي awareness للطلاب سرعتهم إدراك the differences? How can make your students know the differences? You can show them some videos from YouTube, for example. We can also have students from the same cultural backgrounds measure the distance they sit from one another while doing their work. Okay, so تطبيق على البيانات. Then compare this with the distance between members of other cultures. Okay. We can make some role plays and dramas, مسرحيات. هاي الصفحة اللي بعتها. Can offer another way for students to experience the distance they could encounter in a culture opposite from their own. ممكن يسوي مشاهد مسرحية سينز تمثيل يعني ممكن يسوي تبين إنه هاي culture مالتهم بهالطريقة. وهاي شنو الغرض من عندنا البيربس to make your students aware of this new culture of the culture of the language that they are learning. Okay, so these are differences in culture. We'll stop here. Next lecture, we will talk about socio-cultural behaviors across cultures. Socio-cultural behavior across cultures, and also successful cross-cultural communication involves problem solving. Okay. I want you to read them, please. You have to read them, understand them, because they are in details. And also to understand culture, get to know individuals. To understand another culture, study your own. هيك خلص مدني. لحد what problems do some EF teachers have related to culture? Well, of course, we have problems. So what are these problems? We will study these problems. Till the problems, okay? Till the problems, till page 133. 133. Okay. If you have any question, please, you can ask.